This is geometry. We're going to be working on area of circles. There is a good video here that you can log into that will give an explanation from where the formula for a circle comes from. Gives you a little bit of understanding at least. But what we've learned is it's pi r squared. Notice that the symbols are all the same as what we use for circumference. Circumference, we said 2 pi r. This time we're using pi r squared. So you got to start to remember which formula goes with which topic. Notice that the r is squared. The r being squared helps remind me that we're talking about an area. When we talk about area, we talk about how many square units are in this certain location. So if my unit or my calculation has r squared in it, that reminds me that this is actually the area formula. A common mistake are people that are going to say the formula is 2 pi r squared, because you put two formulas together. So be careful on remembering your formulas. There's only one formula for area. So we have to know the radius, and then we can calculate our area. So if we know the radius, our area is pi r squared. We put the 4.2 into our formula. We're going to square that. That gives us 16.4, and we usually write it in a different order. We say 16.4 pi. These would be meters squared. These are square meters. What that means is we're dividing this shape up into little squares that are all 1 meter by 1 meter. Now, a meter is actually pretty big. But in this situation, we're saying that this radius is 4.2 meters. So what we're doing is breaking this or dividing this circle up into a whole bunch of tiles. So we're going to have a whole bunch of tiles, almost 16 of them, that are going to be full tiles. Then we're going to have some partial tiles that would also be here. We would have to know their calculation. So that's why we can't just count them. It's very difficult to count area. When you have circles, you can't count it because you've got all this curved area. So how many square meters? That's why we put the units on the side, square meters. Now, what is the diameter? If I know my area, and remember, area is like the floor. It's like the carpet, how much carpeting you have. We have 201 square inches. So think about what a square inch is, and you have 201 of them. What is the diameter going to be all the way across? So if the area is supposed to be pi r squared, 201 pi r squared, I plugged my 201 in for the A. I'm going to divide by pi. And when I do that, I get 201 divided by pi. That gives me 6398. 6398. And that's my r squared. Then I'm going to take the square root of that. Square root of the answer. And that gives me 7.99. And if I look at my third digit, that's 5 or bigger. So I'm going to round to the 9 and make it a 10, which moves over here and makes that a 10, which makes this an 8. So 8.00. And those would be 8 inches. If the diameter was about 8, and if you like to use a squiggly, you can use a squiggly because it's not exactly 8. It's super, super close to 8. We would have an area of 201. The circumference of a circle is 18 pi inches. The circumference, remember, is the distance around the outside. That's 18 pi. We want to know what the area of that circle is. I have enough fencing for something called 18 pi. But how much of this carpeting do I need for inside my circle is the question. So find the area. Well, to find area, I know I need the radius. So I'm going to take my circumference and talk about 2 pi r. So 18 pi is my circumference. 2 pi r is part of my formula. I'm going to divide by 2 pi. I know my pi's and the 2's cross out. My pi's cross out, and I'm left with 9r. Or 9 equals r. And r is your radius. So your radius equals 9. Well, if my radius equals 9, then I'm ready to do my calculation of pi r squared. So that's 81 times pi, and these are inches, so we call them square inches, inches squared. If you wanted to know a decimal version of that, you could come to your calculator and say 81 times pi. You can put the time symbol there if you want. You don't have to. And you'll get the area to be approximately 254.47 inches squared. The inches squared, remember, tells us that that's how many tiles we would have. That's how many square, I don't want to call them boxes, because a box implies that it's a three-dimensional figure, but these are how many squares that we would have inside. Okay. Over here, similar to the other homework question we have, you go ahead and think about what needs to be done for this problem. So they use this word called inscribed. A square with side lengths of 12 is inscribed around a circle. It's on the outside of the circle, touching just at the very edges. Find the area of the circle. Well, if the side of the box or the side of the square is 12, we have the diameter to also be 12. So I know the diameter is 12. So my area needs radius, and diameter equals 2 times r. The radius square, or the radius times 2 is my diameter. So 12 equals 2r. So I know my radius is 6. So my area is going to be pi r squared. Pi 6 squared. So my exact answer is 36 pi centimeters squared. That's my exact answer. And my estimated, or my decimal version, is going to be 36 times pi, which gives me 113 point, rounded up to be 10. 113.10 centimeters squared. That's the rounded or the estimated. All right, last question. We have this pizza. The pizza is apparently have a diameter of 16. So if the diameter is 16, the radius is just going to be 8. The pizza is cut into 8 congruent pieces. The diameter is 16, which makes the radius 8. Find the area of one slice of pizza. So I'm going to find the total area and divide that into 8 equal pieces. So if my radius equals 8, then my area is going to be pi r squared. My area is going to be pi times 8 squared, which is 64 pi. These are inches squared. So it's almost like 64 pepperonis could fit on this pizza, because each pepperoni is kind of an inch this way and an inch that way. These are supposed to be square little tiles. There would be 64 of them on this pizza. Well, if I took this 64 pi, that's my amount, my area, I'm going to divide that into 8 equal pieces. Not because the radius is 8, but because there are 8 slices. And 8 goes into 8, or 8 goes into 64 8 times. So each slice of pizza is 8 inches squared, 8 square inches. I said 8 square inches, but it would be 8 pi square inches. So if you want to think about that as 8 times pi, that is 25.13. 25.13 inches squared. That's what each slice is.